It was always exciting and often unexpected things would happen. It was very exciting. It was a very collaborative, creative process, certainly with all the people that worked on the films that I produced with Derek. It was kind of fun. We would start off with a rough idea of where we might be going and change direction several times in the process, and there were always things to be discovered and people's talents to be seen and to be found. So it was fun. It was good. It was a different kind of working than in the regular film business. When we made, for instance, Lost of England, we made it completely outside the system. We basically financed the film ourselves with the assistance of the people who worked on it. They basically gave their time and their skills for free until we completed the film. And that was different than when you're normally working in a film. It's very regimented and you're working to very strict schedules, and things keep getting moved around so that they can accommodate weather and things like that. But our way of working was to accept what was happening in nature and the elements like rain or sun or whatever, and incorporate that into the actual filmmaking practice. I first met Derek when I was running the London Filmmakers Cooperative Cinema, and he came and showed a whole group of his Super 8mm films, the short films that he made himself. This was in the late 70s, 1978, I think, maybe 79. No, yeah, 79. And by that time, he'd made some 50 films on his own, with friends on Super 8. And he was just a very, very compelling person. You know, he was really interesting to talk to. He was really sort of attracted your attention, and he had a lot to say, and was very charming as well, and very very knowledgeable about things, and eloquent, and had a good sense of humour. So that's very important, I think. Because he had such a personal vision of cinema, and he wasn't interested in the corporate. He didn't like the corporate structure of cinema because he'd already worked with people like Ken Russell, who he likes a lot and he liked the films, but they were made in a very traditional way, and he wanted to do something else. So he was very much an outsider of the establishment, and therefore he wasn't. He didn't find it easy to get his films funded. And we're talking about very small amounts of money. They're not. None of Derek's films are very expensive. They're very modest films, but he found it very difficult to find even that small amount of money. And when I first met him in the late 70s, just after he'd made The Tempest, he spent the next 6 years without making a major film. And if he was any other filmmaker, he would have basically done nothing except write and rewrite scripts for 6 years. But fortunately, Derek was also a painter and a writer, and he was also like an independent filmmaker, so he made other work in that time. And what I think was really interesting, even at those moments of despair, because I mean, like everybody else, you know, he has to eat, he has to do whatever, and he wasn't making any money, so at points he was extremely broke. He would continue to find small amounts of money, not just to put into his films, not just to buy rolls of film to make his own film, but he'd buy film to give to other people who were, you know, students who were poor, couldn't afford anything. And so he was always very supportive of other filmmakers, and he always spoke out in public in the defence of filmmakers, or filmmakers with vision, which very few people would do, and certainly nobody does now. Nobody would actually stand up, or very few would really stand up and say, I think this is wrong, the way that the country is treating serious cinema is wrong, you know, because they're all scared. But Derek was never scared, so he'd stand up and say, you know, I think you're all wrong. Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I know it frightens the life out of a lot of filmmakers, and certainly distributors are very frightened. And it is a sort of an interesting point. I guess from an independent filmmaker's point of view, what would the problems be? The problems are, I suppose, that you're not really earning very much money from your films anyway. There's not a lot of income from making films. I mean, it's barely enough to live on. It's a sort of very menial wage. And if you're at that stage of your life, if you're not making any money at all, which I guess would happen if people were freely exchanging your work, if there's no copyright issue, then I guess people would just stop making films and maybe do something else. And unlike, I mean, if you're an artist, or you can, to some extent, you can sell the original work. If you're a writer, there are copyright. I don't know what's happened to writing on the internet. I mean, there are books available on the internet. I mean, I found out copyright books on the internet which you can download, but I mean, who the hell wants to bother downloading a novel when you can go to a bookshop and buy one for a few pounds? I would have thought it's the same with films. I mean, if you have, I can't imagine quality being that good for several more years, and I imagine that most people's ability to download work is probably limited. I mean, certainly mine is, and I think that the worst thing that will probably happen, which happens with everything anyway, is that somebody will download it, duplicate it, and sell it. But that's just criminal activity anyway, and I'm very against that. But I don't know. I don't know how it'll affect things. I guess people just have to make longer films. I mean, if you make an 8-hour film, nobody's ever going to be able to download it. Yeah, when we made The Garden, I asked if there was going to be a script, and he said, "Yes, James, it's Matthew and Luke." So we had that. In The Last of England, it was very much an idea of, we wanted to make a film that dealt with the idea of Britain, of England in decline, and what was going wrong, and it was a kind of way of putting into pictures feelings that we and people around us had. So that was discussed, but it wasn't formalized into a written script. I don't think Derek was very good with written scripts. He wasn't brilliant with them. It took him a long time to write a script, and then it was always kind of strange. I mean, the thing I've always noticed about Derek's scripts, there seem to be bits from elsewhere sort of occur in them, things that occur in Derek's scripted films that seem to come from other films which you might have seen a long time ago and forgotten, but which every so often I see something, I think, that's interesting. That's that same thing that's happening in there is happening in this film. Anyway, the ideas are discussed, but because they're made in an improvised way, a lot of that discussion takes place in front of the camera, and that's why Derek very carefully chose the people he worked with. And especially the people in front of the camera. It was a very close and collaborative relationship. And also I think if you look at Derek's films, it's quite interesting the way that he frames things. It's quite different than a normal narrative filmmaker would. He tends to frame things head on, and he doesn't usually, in fact he never, in his films he never does a reverse shot, which is a very common thing in normal cinema, to give an idea of illusion of space. Derek always just films from front, a bit like a painter would standing in front of an easel, really. So he took his skills from painting into filmmaking.
La Raro Video, che è un'etichetta ormai già lanciata sul mercato dell'home video da alcuni anni, e che si è sempre contraddistinta per editare opere e autori, ecco, diciamo di una certa rarità, una certa invisibilità. Per esempio un nome diciamo significativo è il nome di Andy Warhol. Ecco, la Raro Video, dicevo, ha lanciato una nuova collana, un nuovo marchio che è Interferenze, che curo io insieme a Stefano Curti. Diciamo la novità della collana è di uscire quasi esclusivamente in DVD e avere quasi sempre un libro allegato.